here is a message to me that you're going to take a shot at this class. So glad to see you. The conclusion that we reached yesterday was that indentured servitude wasn't working. Why not? What was the problem with indentured servitude? Go ahead.
They only had a limited amount of time, and they always had to get more.
Yeah, very good. They were constantly needing to be replaced, and indentured servants would go off and become independent farmers, and they needed a better system. They needed a better economic system of labor. And Captain Obvious question here, what was the system that was decided upon? Slavery. Okay, so let's look at the situation which would lead to slavery. The decision to plant a cash crop, tobacco, and then later on cotton, and in the Caribbean sugar, was greatly improved because of the efforts of this guy, John Rolfe, who, and we're not botanists here, but he was heavily involved in the perfecting of the planting of tobacco. If you want to create a Mount Rushmore, hey, here are the people that are largely responsible, unintentionally, largely responsible for saving slavery, he'd be on there. Because the fact that he perfected a method of planting tobacco meant that they decided we need slaves to do this. I would put Eli Whitney up there. Does anyone know who Eli Whitney is?
I've heard the name.
You should. It should sound familiar. Eli Whitney, the inventor of the cotton gin. Slavery was dying because removing cotton from the seeds is a labor-intensive effort, and it just wasn't seen as profitable. And then he invents the cotton gin, and now all you have to do is feed the cotton in there and crank the wheel, and there go the seeds, and there goes the cotton. Saved slavery. So way to go, Eli Whitney, and way to go, John Rolfe, for saving slavery. The problem with these slaves is that they didn't want to. They did not want to be slaves. I can sort of see why, right? First, you're taken away from your native lands in Africa, and you don't speak English, and there you are in the middle of nowhere, as far as you are concerned. No, this sucks. And so the slave masters needed to come up with a way of motivating these people to work. And you ever heard of the carrot or the stick method?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How do I get the bunny to hop from here to here? How do I get the bunny to hop?
Put a carrot in front of its face.
Put a carrot right here. Reward. Or the stick. I can whip the bunny until it jumps. They went largely with the stick method for slavery, right? Here's a pleasant little thing. This is a mask. If you're ever in South Carolina, go visit the Slavery Museum. There's also the Slavery Museum in Washington, D.C. Have any of you been to Washington, D.C. recently? Did you happen to see or go into the slave? No? Oh, my gosh. My wife and daughter were there this past summer. I said it's fantastic. Just unbelievable. They have methods that were used by slave owners to make sure that slaves behaved, right? And of course, the whip is the most common thing, but man, they got creative. Thumb cuffs. You know what handcuffs are? Mm-hmm. Handcuffs. How about thumb cuffs? They used them, right? So basically teeth that pointed inward, and you shove the thumbs in there, and if they try to pull their thumbs out, well, there goes your thumb, right? Unless you press the button that kind of removed the teeth. And all sorts of creative ways to motivate these Africans to work hard. You can see the year. This is generally seen as the beginning of slavery in the Americas. And since it's 2019 and it began in 1619, math tells us that this year is the 400-year anniversary. So there'll be parades and stuff, I guess. No, probably not. They did begin as indentured servants. These Africans were at first brought over as indentured servants, and then somebody came up with a great idea. Say, why? Why make them indentured servants? Why let them go? Why don't we, at the end of 7 or 11 years, keep them? Okay. And then later on, somebody else came up with another idea, which we'll look at, which was perpetual slavery. Anyone want to take a shot? What is perpetual slavery? If I name you a slave, you are my slave for your life. It's perpetual slavery. Go ahead.
That person's kids are slaves, and then their kids are slaves,
Very
and their kids are slaves.
Slavery forever. Slavery for generations. So the beginning of breeding slaves, right? That guy looks pretty strong. That girl looks pretty strong. Let's breed those two, right? Just like dogs. Okay, so pretty sad. You can see 14% of the population in the colonies made up of slaves in Virginia. 14% of the population. Okay, is that scary?
Yeah.
That's geez, we better make sure we're in control. I will tell you that this, compared to the Caribbean, pretty small number. There were Caribbean islands where slaves outnumbered non-slaves. That's where the revolts occurred. That's where the violent revolts occurred, which we'll look at later on. Okay, we're looking at some other characteristic in Virginia. So Virginia is the colony where tobacco was planted very successfully, where slavery was introduced, and where the first colonial legislature was created. It was called the House of Burgesses. It is the first legislative body in America. What's a legislature? What are we talking about here? Or give me some modern equivalents. What do we have today that largely exists because of the House of Burgesses in Virginia? Go ahead.
Like the legislative branch of the government?
Yes, and now give me some specific examples.
Like they make laws and stuff?
You're telling me what they do. I want some specific actual examples of legislative bodies. I asked for legislative bodies and you said the legislature.
Like the school board? Maybe a legislative body?
Actually, they are. Wow. That's very good. That's local. That's much better than I thought. I thought there were two obvious answers. Silly me. You went more in depth. Awesome. Anybody else? The two obvious answers? The what? Maybe this isn't so obvious. Did you just say the president? Take that back.
The House and the Senate.
Okay, the House and the Senate. The House and the Senate, right? The two legislative bodies in the U.S. legislature. Is this, you took civics?
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't even remember anything.
How is it?
Okay. Virginia was a royal colony, as opposed to colonies that I introduced to you previously that were started by business. Imagine if Walmart had their own state. Those were business colonies. Virginia was a royal colony. Guess what that means? Right. She said owned by the king. In essence, that's true. The king paid for the costs of people that would travel over there. The king bared the costs, or the monarch, I should say, as opposed to Walmart states or the company I showed you yesterday, the Virginia Company of London. The company paid for costs, but now Virginia is a royal colony. They're taken over. Okay. Again, this is an English colony. Here's our second English colony, Maryland, which of course both of these are states today, named after somebody named Land. Very good. Somebody named Land. No, Mary, Queen Mary. Yes. By the way, Virginia named after Queen Mary, the Virgin Queen. She never married. She never ever got married. So they called her the Virgin Queen. She was married to England. Aw.
Oh, nice.
A guy by the name of George Calvert asked permission, because remember, England is a country where you have to be part of the Church of England, right? What if you say, no, I'm going to stay Catholic? Would they kill all of you? No, they didn't kill all of you.
Probably a lot.
Hey, can I create a colony where Catholics are welcome to leave England and come here? They're still your loyal subjects. They just don't want to give up their religious beliefs. Let's not kill them. Let's just send them over there. And over there, they can be still your loyal subjects, but not in your face with their Catholicishness. And he was granted that. And so this became a Catholic-based colony. Okay? The irony is, when they were in England, these people were like, it's not fair. You're not letting us express our religious beliefs. Yeah. And then he moved to Maryland, where they're the ones who force people to be Catholic. This hogwash that you've been taught, that over in Europe they were oppressed and they were picked on, and then they moved to the colonies. Yay! Everybody give me whatever religion we want. Baloney. Over there they were the bullied. Over here they were the bully. You understand? Actually, did you know psychologically that is true? Do you know that bullies are very often bullied at home? Their dad beats on them, so what do they do the next day at school? They beat on someone. And they don't see the hypocrisy. They do not recognize the hypocrisy of what they're doing, which is so often the case. Let's keep going. The guy that replaced George, some guy named Calvert, was his son, Cecilius. And he's the guy that introduced tobacco and slaves. And you might think, how can a good Catholic person believe in slavery? They were able to overcome that little mental hurdle. They were able to overcome that hypocrisy of owning someone. They did not recognize that that was contradictory. Maryland not only accepted Catholics, but later on passed something called the Act of Toleration. Hey, it doesn't matter what Christian religion you are welcome to be here. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Now, what do we have today that is somewhat similar? Go ahead. Yeah, freedom of religion, right? It doesn't matter what religion you are in America. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Not only can you be any religion you want, you can be non-religious. All right. Then I have a question, right? I have a question. How many of you stood up and said the pledge this morning? Did you say the word under God?
I did not.
You chose not to.
I signed the
Okay.
word under God.
Okay.
I did say that.
Very good. All right. So you chose not to say the words. Okay, very good. That was my point. Way to go. Okay. Anyone see something wrong here, though?
It says only Christian.
Hey, Christian. No Jews. No. No Jews here. No Muslims. No. You have to be Christian. So yes, we can applaud. Wow. But wait, it's not as tolerant as you think. You still had to be Christian in Maryland. But it's a step. It's a step towards religious toleration. So we can sort of look at examples of things that were created back then and what we have today as sort of a result, and kind of trace it back to this time. Okay. Last slide. We only have 2 slides today, and then we gotta get busy doing other things. So let's shift our attention to the Indies. Spain and England fought a war against each other. Remember that war? 1588, Spanish Armada wiped out. Okay. And Spain lost more than half their ships. They lost a bunch of their empire to England. Okay. And at this time, the planting of the most addictive drug ever in the history of ever, sugar. Very labor intensive. You got to boil that sugar cane and then lay it out to dry and then physically remove the sugar. It's very, very labor intensive, and so we need slaves. In the West Indies, there were more slaves than non-slaves. Imagine the potential for slave rebellions, which is real. And so we have to make sure that that doesn't happen. So the introduction of black codes, also known as slave codes. This is the area I'm talking about, right? I'm sure many of you have been here on vacation or whatever. Very easy to grow sugar. I shouldn't say easy. Perfect climate to grow sugar. Very labor intensive. We need slaves. There are more slaves than not slaves. We better make sure that they're in control. And so we're going to create a series of laws to keep these people in line called the slave codes. I bet you could name some of the rules. I mean, just think logically. What would a rule be? Be creative.
No, don't talk.
You're sort of on the right track. I don't know about the don't talk, because how else are you supposed to
Communicate.
tell me, you know, how to boil sugar? Sorry?
No intermixing cultures.
Very good. It was illegal to produce a mixed race child. Well, and by the way, if that child was mixed race, you know what that child was? Black. And if you're black, you are a slave. Slave codes dictated how black you could be before you were not considered a slave anymore. And they got to, I believe the number, it's either 1/8 or 1/16. If you were more than 1/8 black, you're black. And as a result, you are a slave. Or 1/16, I can't remember. But think about that. That means that if you had 8 great-grandparents, right? You have 2 parents, which means you have 4 grandparents, which means you have 8 great-grandparents. And I realize that some of you are like divorced and all that stuff. And so, I've got 9. Okay, fine. But generally, biologically, you have 2 parents, 4 grandparents, and 8 great-grandparents. If one of those great-grandparents was black and the other were crystal white, you're black. And think about this. During the Holocaust, the Nazis would hunt down Jews, and they dictated that if you were 1/64th Jewish, you're a Jew. 1/64th, which means, okay, there's you, and then there are parents, and then there are your grandparents, and then there are your great-grandparents, and then there are your great-great-grandparents, and then there are your great-great-great-grandparents, and then there are your great-great-great-great-great-grandparents. If one of your great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, there might be another great in there, was Jewish, you're a Jew. Now, we'll revisit this later, obviously, when we get to World War II, but how in the world did the Germans know? How could they possibly know that one of your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents was Jewish, and as a result, you're a Jew? How did they know?
They dug into family records.
I'm not looking for an answer here. I'm just teasing you for later. By the way, what did I just do?
Synthesis.
I just synthesized. Do you understand now, based on my explanation of the German policy toward Jews, the English policy toward whether or not you were a slave? You now understand because I explained something completely different. I explained A, and now you understand B. You have to do that once in your Blue Book essay. One time. You have to explain that Columbus was like this because Billy was like that. Or something like that. You got to do that once. Other parts of black codes, no teaching your slaves how to read or write. If they learn how to read or write, they might read something and as a result learn, hey, my life sucks. So if we don't teach them how to read or write, maybe they won't know. That was the belief anyway. Don't teach them how to read or write. Illegal to teach your slaves how to read or write. There were other laws, no allowing certain number of slaves unattended. Right? You can't just say, hey, John, can you go to town and get me some milk? No. That guy might run away. No. Et cetera, et cetera. Okay.
Mixing genders, no co-ed.
A specific example of what I'm talking about are the Barbados slave codes, which basically said slaves aren't people. They don't have rights. You and I have constitutional rights. Can you name a constitutional right? Can you name one constitutional right that you have?
Freedom of religion.
Very good. Freedom of religion, your First Amendment rights. You are also a human. You're a human?
I think so.
Can you name a human right? You're human. You have human rights, right? You have the right to breathe. All right. Well, we'll work on the human rights. Okay. You are also, as American citizens, you have civil rights. Can you name a civil right?
You can vote.
The right to vote? That's not a constitutional right? Yeah, I see we have some civics to work on here. You have human rights. You have constitutional rights. You have civil rights. You have rights if you're arrested.
Yeah, the right.
Hopefully
to
you've never
remain
experienced
silent.
this, but you have when the cops arrest you, they basically tell you,
You can-
listen, you're under arrest. We're going to ask you a bunch of questions. You don't have to answer any of them. Now, where is he?
I plead the
That's
fifth.
my Batman. Okay.
I plead the
Any
fifth.
questions here? That's enough. Put it away. Let's attack some documents. We are now on topic number 2. We're done with Columbus. By the way, my hand hurts. We're done with Columbus. We are now moving on to topic number 2. And in your Blue Book essays, you have to address the different points of view of Zinn versus Schweikert and Allen about 2 different topics. There are 3 presented, you pick 2. So maybe when we were done with Columbus, you're thinking, I don't like that topic at all. Great. There are 2 other topics you can choose from. Feel free to choose 2 of the 3 topics offered. Okay? Hopefully you're looking at the same thing I am. I am now looking at 4 documents under European justification for colonization. We are going to attack all 4 documents fairly quickly here. Okay? I'm going to skip the Zinn. I'm going to go to Schweikert and Allen first. I'm going to just have this half of the room reread. I realize that I assigned these to you, but that's okay. I'm going to have this half of the room reread Schweikert and Allen, page 4, that quick little document there, 1 line. Just reread that. And I'm going to have this half of the room just quickly read Schweikert and Allen, page 10, those 4 lines. Just quickly reread it and be able to answer this question. According to Schweikert and Allen, why did the Europeans want to colonize the Americas? It can be answered in 1 word. Will you just give me the thumbs up if you think you know that word, or you can tell me. According to Schweikert and Allen, of course there were several reasons, but what was reason number 1? What was the number 1 motivation for why Europeans were interested in the Americas? You can figure out that answer. Gracie's still confused? Which is okay. You're not 100% sure. Okay, that's fine. All right. Let's just relook at document the first of the 2 documents. It says, at the same time, Columbus was earnestly desirous of taking Christianity to heathen lands. Heathen means non-Christian. All right? This half of the room. What was the reason Columbus went over there? And then by extension, the Spanish. What was the reason? Yes. Religion. To convert the non-Christian. How in the world did those Indians, how could they expose to the truth of Jesus? They lived over there. Jesus was over here. How are they supposed to get the word of God over there? Right. This is Columbus's mission. This was the Spanish's, is that a word? Mission. Yeah, gold. Yeah, make Spain great. Yes, find a route to Asia. Religion. Number 1. Okay. This half of the room. Anyone want to take, according to that document, what's the number 1 reason? religion. It's the same thing, right? That traveling with every expedition were priests and friars, and the first permanent buildings erected by Spaniards was a church. Conquistadors genuinely believed that converting the heathen ranked near or even above the acquisition of riches. Spanish missions were built everywhere, right? And here's my suggestion. I would, if I were you, I would use the first of the two documents for my document evidence, and then the second of the two as my historical evidence. And then maybe do a little bit more research and find a specific actual mission that was built. They're everywhere. There's even one in San Antonio. I even bet someone has been there. Has anyone been to San Antonio? There's a rather famous mission that was built a little bit later than this, but it was built there in San Antonio. And later on, it became kind of important in American history. Have I lost all of you? Do any of you have any idea what I'm talking about? You do, of course. I mean that. That's a good thing. Okay. Any questions? Now, the reason I skipped Zinn is because I'm going to suggest that Zinn is going to directly contradict Schweikert and Allen's claim. Okay. So let's just take a look at the second of the two Zinn, and will you this half reread the Zinn page 6, and then will this half of the room reread Zinn page 2. And again, according to Zinn, what's the primary objective? One word. Just these four. These two are because they're under a different head. Do you need to do? No, right. Anyone need more time? I'm going to do a little exercise here, and maybe you'll recognize what I'm doing here in a minute here. So, hey, you people over here, you know why I'm Schweikert now. This half is Schweikert and this half is Allen. You know why the Europeans were so interested in going to New World? Religion. They wanted to convert the natives, and I'll give you some proof. They always brought priests with them wherever they went. They always built missions, and this is evidence that they were really interested. Yeah, gold, fine, but they were really interested in converting the natives to Christianity. Your Zinn, based solely on the document that you read, can you reject my argument?
Well, they just wanted to kill the people. They didn't really have a reason to go there. They just went to this land and they saw these people and they beheaded them.
And what you just did was provide me historical evidence, but what you're lacking is analysis. Okay, what you did there is awesome, and now what you need to do is say the analysis part. Which what I mean by that is, as a result, you've provided the evidence. Lead me to what your conclusion is. Okay, I said the reason they went there is because they wanted to convert, and then I gave you evidence. They always built missions, and they always brought along their priests, and that's evidence. And then you said, nah, they killed a bunch of people. Okay, so what's your conclusion? Let me lead you to the conclusion, okay? How does that prove that they weren't motivated to convert? How does what you just said prove that my claim is not true?
Because they don't want to convert people. Why would they just be killing them all?
Right. Killing people are the behaviors of Christians? Look at your document.
You can't
Look at
convert
it. Second line.
to person.
So-called Christians met 2 Indian boys one day, each carrying a parrot. They took the parrots and for fun beheaded the boys. Awesome. Praise Jesus.
You can't-
By the way, I am not mocking your religious views. Please don't go home and say, Mr. Potter thinking about it. I'm mocking them. These people. They're the ones that didn't exactly act in a Christian way. So please note,
Not all.
when you provide historical evidence, great, but you also have to do the analysis. This shows that they killed a bunch of people. That's true. This shows that they were not interested in spreading Christianity. Christians don't kill people for fun. They probably treated them as like a couple soccer balls. Check this out. Score! That's a head. It's dark humor today. Okay.
You can't convert
So
to
notice,
person.
so far, Zinn has rejected, according to this, just rejected the argument that it was about Christianity. Well, then what was it about? Gold. Look what Zinn did. Zinn did what you have to do in your Blue Book essay. Rejected the argument made by the opposition with historical evidence, and then presented what he thought it was all about. Gold. Right? To make Spain wealthy. Okay. Spain. And him. Absolutely. Him. Yep. Okay, and you know, the second paragraph of Zinn, page 2, talks about how Columbus actually did see little hints of gold, and as a result, demanded that the natives turn over to him sufficient amount of gold.
You want to be rich.
Any questions? Yes?
Did he get rich?
Columbus was very wealthy until he spent it all. Columbus was broke when he died. Broke. But at one point, he wrote a contract with Isabella. He was able to keep 10% of all the gold he found.
Oh,
10%.
Jesus.
Personally.
And they found a lot.
Well, a lot. That's a dangerous term.
Okay.
What do you mean? You know, is $1 million a big number? Is $1 million a big number?
Yeah.
No, it isn't. 2 million's bigger. Is $1 million a big number? Is $1 million a big number?
Yes.
No, it isn't. 3 million's bigger. I can think of a whole lot of numbers bigger than $1 million. Is $1 million a big number?
No.
Sure it is. It's bigger than $500,000. Do you understand? That's the theory of relativity. Okay.
Oh, God.
Any questions? Let's put that away. Let's register for your course. So you need your computers out.
Otter, you make my brain hurt. My brain hurts. Leave me alone. They are just like, yeah. They're like, I'm done. Goodbye. I'm done.
You are basing the section that you are registering for on today. Today. So you are section 1. You will pay attention to the class section that is the left of the 2 options. I will read it. Okay, so I'll sort of hold your hand here and sort of walk you through, but it's all right there. Steps 1 through 5. So step 1 is go to. Oh, I'm sorry. How did I miss you? Right. So I'm just looking at number 1. Go to that website, myCIS. Why did I say it like that? mycis.umn.edu/student. And then you create a myCIS account and registration request. It is possible. How many of you have another CIS course? Like you're taking Cisco's or nobody? Oh, okay, never mind. What's that? And then you're just going down the line, right? You're completing your CIS account by creating your information, your demographic details. I think there's at one point where it asks for your student ID. How will you know? You haven't joined yet, so don't worry about that.
Okay.
Yeah, just no, you don't have one yet. So how's it possible?
Oh, it's only 16.
Sorry. And there's no rush here, so, but I mean, you just go down the list here. And again, so pause for just a second. You guys are up here at the top. It says class section, for example, math 1371 slide. You are the one on the left. You are history 1307-700-18344. That's you. Later on today, the other 30 students will be registering for the second section. And ultimately, it doesn't really matter, but they limit the number of kids per section to 30. So I need half of you to register for the first section, and then the other half to register for the second section. So you're the first. Okay.
So we don't worry anything for the student.
You don't have to worry.
This website's weird for a college website. It says ethnicity, but they're all races.
Okay, good. What other CIS course have you taken or are you taking?
I'm taking
Okay. So you already did.
Yeah.
So you're just adding.
Yeah.
Wait, is American Indian an ethnicity or
American Indian would be an ethnicity. Native American would be a race. When you are registering, the session is year-long, fall year-long, right?
Mr. Potter, do I have to write my current home address or my new home address?
I don't know. Not that though. You'd be registering not for year-long, but just the fall semester. Because you do this again next semester. So I think you're just registering fall semester 1. I think that's right. Second semester is a different course. You get 3 credits for this class and then 3 credits for the next class.
Oh, sweet.
6 college credits. By the way, not only that, but this is the U.S. history course. When you go off to college, you took U.S. history. You're done.
Oh, now we don't have to.
These are not general college credits that you can apply to electives like those AP courses. It's fine, but the AP courses do not offer you the actual class credits. They just give you credits. This class, U.S. history credit, you're done. Yes.
is somebody log in with a password? Yeah.
You're doing the suggested password and it's still rejecting you? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, I did that too.
Yeah,
I
it's
did the exact same thing. Yeah, mine's doing it too. Yeah.
We have to submit it.
I like typed in my own. And just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, whatever, she's like, yeah, I did work again.
What's wrong
I'm
with you?
gonna write down my password. There's no way.
Yours isn't working, yours isn't working, yours isn't working.
Well, I got in, I just put a bunch of random numbers.
So Don't go with the suggested one, come up with your own. Be very creative and don't forget it.
Well, I did that, and it still didn't work.
Do it again.
Password is enter password.
You have to have a capital and then some other like.
Oh
my
You need, yep, a capital, a lowercase, a special, and it needs to be, and a number.
Doesn't need the special, I didn't have a special.
You didn't have special. And it needs to be 16 characters long, which is ridiculous.
16 or more.
Wait, so I just made my password enter password.
All right. Wow.
Isn't it your student number? Okay.
Oh.
At Somerset, SOMERSET, dot K12. Dot WI. Dot US.
My password's 44.
We're 18,344, right?
18344.